guys to the first episode in this series. Just before I begin, I'd like to explain what this series is about. Crime stories is something that I'm very passionate about. I've been for a very long time now, and I actually want to become a criminal investigator. In every video, I'm going to be giving you guys the biggest amount of information possible. I'll make sure that I don't miss a single detail. The purpose of this video is to solve the crime. Now I know you guys are gonna go like, what the hell, Lean? They have criminal investigators and they have people to do that. So why are we gonna do it? Well, you guys never know. At the end of each and every video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the case. This is made for entertainment purposes only. I don't mean to hurt anyone, don't intend to open any wounds or scars that have healed. So today's case is one of the most famous cases in the US. Till this day, nobody knows who actually killed the 6-year-old girl. Let's give you some background information on who the victim is. JonBenét Ramsey was a 6-year-old girl. She was perfect. She knew how to dance, she knew how to sing. She was the beauty pageant queen. Sadly, her ending was not as perfect. She was born into a very wealthy family. Her father was a multimillionaire, and she lived with her brother, her mother, and her father. On the morning of December 26, 1996, her mother was getting ready for a trip, and she went to wake her daughter up. She then realized that her daughter was actually missing. The eerie part is, they found a ransom note on the stairs. This ransom note was 2.5 pages long, and it stated that Ramsey family had to pay $118,000. The ransom note also stated to not call the police. Now, to begin with, the $118,000, that was the exact amount her father earned as a bonus that year, which is very weird. Parents ignored what the ransom note said and they called the police. 5:50 a.m., the police arrived. They searched the whole house and found nothing. They concluded that there was no forced entry, which means that the kidnapper was inside the house somehow, had the keys, or the doors were unlocked. Now, the weirdest part in the story is that her body was actually in the basement, and the person who found her was her father. I find it hard to believe that the police didn't find anything to do with the girl, even though she was in the basement. Usually, bodies that have passed away for hours, they tend to smell. So 13 hours after the police arrived, and after not finding anything, her father found her body. What he did was he carried his daughter and he went upstairs. Now what he did is he tampered with evidence, because by carrying her, there could have been fibers, there could have been anything that we could have extracted as evidence, but by carrying her, he destroyed that. Also, he removed the duct tape that was found on her mouth, which also meant that he tampered with evidence and found something in the duct tape, which they did. But I'll get to that later. Now, what's weird about this case, guys, is the amount of investigative errors. For starters, they managed to lock her room so that they could retrieve evidence from her room, okay? But they left the whole house open. Now, the problem is, she was in her bedroom and was found in the basement, which means that in between, there was something going on. So that could have been the kidnapper passed the hallway, he went to the kitchen, he went to the living room. Not closing that area. Her family members and police officers, they roamed around those areas and they tampered with evidence. They could have found footprints, they could have found anything that they could use. You guys understand what I'm trying to say? Another thing that was very weird was that her parents were interrogated together. Now, usually when we suspect someone or two people, we don't put them together. We try to intimidate them so they could confess as much as possible. So we separate them so they feel uncomfortable, and then we start interrogating them. But by interrogating them together, I mean, who knows, they could have had a plan all along and it was just helping them being together, you know what I mean? The autopsy revealed that she died because of strangulation and a fractured skull. There was no conclusive evidence of rape because that area was wiped clean. But guys, what's so weird was that on her underwear there were bloodstains, and the bloodstains matched her father's. So I just said right now about the blood being her father's, that came out after 20 years. So, which is pretty new information. As I mentioned, her private area was wiped clean, which means that the person who committed the murder knew what he was doing. Which gets us on to the very interesting part. So the person who did that knows what he was doing. So who is he? Now there are two theories, the family theory and the intruder theory. I want you guys to listen very carefully to the evidence that I'm going to mention right now. I want you guys to comment down below who you think the murderer or murderers are. Now, the first theory is the family theory, which means that the family killed her. The first evidence is that the ransom note that they found was written by a paper and a pen that belonged to the Ramsey family. So how did the murderer know where the paper and the pen is to write the ransom note? The second thing is the ransom note was too long. Now, usually ransom notes are pretty short, unless you know so much that you decide to write a 2.5-page ransom note. And if you guys don't believe that it was pretty long, well, there was a team who decided to write the ransom note again to see how long it was going to take to write. It took 21 minutes to write the 2.5-page ransom note. So again, pretty long. So the person who kidnapped her wasn't rushed, which is weird. The third thing is, as I mentioned before, the ransom note demanded the exact same amount that her father received as a bonus, which means that the kidnapper was someone who knew the family. The third thing is, fiber was retrieved from her duct tape and it matched her mother's clothes. Now, her mother did not pick her up or touch her at all. So, how did the fiber get on her clothes? And the last evidence is that they found indigested pineapple in her stomach. But when the parents were telling the story, they mentioned that they came back home and put their kids to bed and they went to bed. The indigested pineapple means that she had pineapple before she died in a few hours, which means that she wasn't asleep. Therefore, her parents were lying. Now, onto the second theory, the intruder theory. They found a footprint next to her body, but the footprint didn't match anyone in the family. The second thing is that there was a broken window in the basement, and they thought that that was forced entry, but they discovered spider webs around the window, which meant that no one had entered or exited the window for a while. The father then confessed later on that he's the one who broke the window a very long time ago because he locked himself inside the basement. Now, I don't really believe that story whatsoever, but either way, window isn't really evidence. The third thing is that the floor was carpeted, which means that it was very easy for the kidnapper to walk without making any audible noise. Now, I want you guys to comment down who you think right now. Let's take a break. Now, for a very long time, the parents were the main suspects. The parents' theory is much stronger than the intruders. But her parents were never charged. In 2006, her mother, Patricia Ramsey, died of ovarian cancer. Her father later on remarried. In 2006, the first suspect was arrested. His name was John Mark Carr. He was found in Thailand. He admitted to assaulting and killing JonBenét Ramsey. He also mentioned that he had drugged her before he killed her. But the autopsy revealed that she had no drugs in her system when she passed away, and his DNA did not match the crime scene, which means that it wasn't him. He was also in Georgia at the time of the murder, which is not where the murder happened. The second suspect was Gary Oliver. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So what happened was, a while after JonBenét Ramsey was killed, he tried hurting a girl, and he also attempted to strangle his mother the same exact way that JonBenét Ramsey was strangled. They found a picture of JonBenét in his possession with a poem, a lyric poem called To JonBenét Ramsey. But again, his DNA did not match. The weirdest thing is that the DNA test from the crime scene detects that there were two people at the time of the crime, other than JonBenét Ramsey, which means that two people committed the crime. Now, those two suspects did not match the DNA found, which means that it wasn't them. Who was it? The third suspect was actually her brother. In 2016, a CBS television show featured a pathologist. The pathologist stated that her brother could have accidentally struck his sister with a heavy flashlight. Now, the reason why people actually believe that it's the brother is because when his sister was killed at that time, she was 9 years old, and they conducted interviews with her brother at a very young age, and he was getting very weird behavior. But let's just say that he was a kid and that's why he was doing that. But the thing is, he's still emitting weird behavior. I mean, I'm going to show you right now a snippet. This interview with Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil isn't asking him, how are you today? How's your life? You're very handsome, for him to smile this much. He's asking him how you felt or what you felt when you found your sister. I don't really see what's very funny about that, but whatever. Now, to make matters even more complicated, remember the first suspect that I mentioned, John Mark Carr? Well, he said something very, very important that I think we should all consider. How she was found was not how she died. Her body was tampered with in a bid to cover up who the killer is. I mean, what he's implying is pretty obvious. So, my theory is, I believe that her family killed her. Whether it was an accident or on purpose, doesn't matter. What matters is her brother knows something. Why? Because if I'm talking body language right now, that's why he's smiling this way. He's trying to calm himself, but he's doing a pretty bad job. What I think happened is that her parents killed her or her brother. Then they decided to hire two strangers, and the parents paid the strange men to stage the crime scene, which is why they found her body after the police searched the house. I mean, why else wouldn't the police find her body? Which is also why her private parts were wiped clean. The third thing that I find very weird is that when they found her, arms were tied, but those knots were very loose, which means that they were just trying to stage it. Also, why was the ransom note written by paper and a pen from the house? And why did it take so long to write? A 21-minute ransom note seems bizarre to me. And why write a ransom note if the person that you're kidnapping is in their home? If you ask me, her parents actually killed her, and her brother was a participant. Even though he was 9 years old, he may not have directly hurt her, but he did something, or he was the cause of his parents killing her. And if you guys don't agree with my theory, I'm going to repeat this one more time to make it clear to you guys. How she was found was not how she died. Her body was tampered with in a bid to cover up who the killer was. So the father could have molested the daughter, he could have hurt her, and to cover that up, they decided to kill her and make it seem like it was a kidnap. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment down below who you think the murderer is. And all the information that I retrieved obviously from websites, so I'll be putting the links below so you guys can do your own reading. I've tried as much as possible to accumulate the biggest amount of information and details that not everyone knows. Have a lovely day, you guys. I'll be seeing you very soon.